Hello Penguinauts, I'm the Bearded Penguin and welcome back to Fall of Kerbin. Now, for the first time in the World War II era, our carriers are in range of the enemy carriers and it's time to launch a strike. So, in the south we're launching 3 of our A6 turn carrier-based fighters, which can actually get off a carrier it turns out. It's just the AI pilot which seems to fly them into the ocean for whatever reason. So we take each one off the carrier individually and then once they're safely in the air, we activate the pilot. As you can see, they're very heavily based off of the Japanese A6M0, which proved itself to be a terrifying adversary in the Pacific Theatre in World War II. However, the aircraft we're going up against are based off of American Corsairs. They're called Pelicans, which is actually the same name as our naval bomber, so Tape probably needs to change that. His little P-38 as well also tries to take off to attack us, but for some reason it flies into the ocean, despite us giving it a bit of a nudge. But here we go. Tape has the advantage when it comes to energy fighting and speed, whereas we have the advantage when it comes to climb rate and maneuverability. Now, we're actually taking a very different approach to Tape because we're attacking the aircraft on his carrier and not the carrier itself. As you saw in his turn, he attacked the Kua Watson, but he left our aircraft intact, and since he failed to sink her, that means that the Kua Watson can now still use her aircraft and is pretty much fully operational. If he'd attacked our aircraft and attacked the carrier and failed to sink the carrier, she'd be useless because she'd have to return to port to get more aircraft and we wouldn't be able to use her this turn. But anyway, the dogfight has begun, and we're going to see whether maneuverability or speed is a defining factor in aerial combat. As you see, they've caught right up to us, and they're engaging us immediately. They've closed the altitude and speed advantage that we had immediately, and actually, we've outrun one of our A6 turns already. So one of them's been caught so far behind the dogfight that it's no longer actually involved in the battle. So it's 2v2, and the tables are perfectly even. However, since they've been trying to catch up to us, they don't actually have an altitude advantage over us, which means they can't energy fight the way they'd probably like to, which is gain an altitude advantage over us, dive down on us, and attack us while we're helpless. So they're actually attacking us at the same altitude, which means we can attack them while they're going in to joust at us. The actual maneuverability of this aircraft isn't really helping. As you see, as soon as we manage to turn around, they've left us behind. The more powerful engine they're using really does give them a massive advantage, but they're so bad when it comes to maneuverability. Even when they go into joust at us, all we have to do is pull a light maneuver and they can't actually get their guns pointing at us. So the only way they can actually fight us is by charging straight at us in a head-on, and we have 20 mils whereas they have 50 cals, so we have more firepower, much longer range, and a lot more damaging. So when it comes in for a jousting run, we rip its wings off, and there we go, scratch one Pelican straight into the drink. But we don't have a moment to rest because here comes the second Pelican going in for its own jousting run. Here we go, got to try and line up our shot. Our A6 turn behind it isn't going to close fast enough to take it out before it fires at us. Okay, here we go, open fire, and we just about managed to take it out before it can open fire with its own 50 cals. And there we go, without a single A6 turn blown out the sky, we've destroyed all but the P-38 on Tape's carrier. So, now Tape doesn't have any fighters protecting his little flotilla of ships in the south. We're free to launch and attack on it with a Pelican of our own. Of course, completely different aircraft. It just has the same name because Tape doesn't seem to check what our aircraft are called before he calls his own aircraft things. I mean, it is the go-to sort of seabird though, so I guess we can't really blame him. Anyway, as you can see, we are not dive bombing these ships. Instead, we're doing a torpedo attack. Now, the advantage this gives us is we're pretty much guaranteed to hit and do a significant amount of damage to a ship, but we're not going to be able to wipe out the entire ship in one hit, unlike dive bombing. Now, dive bombing, you're far more likely to miss or just do superficial damage, but there is the chance of hitting the magazine and detonating the whole ship in a spectacular explosion. There's no chance of that really happening with a torpedo. The most you're going to do is blow off some armor and cause some flooding. But here we go. We have to close to 3 kilometers, and there we are. We close nice and fast, nice and low, and we drop our torpedo before the anti-aircraft guns can blow us out of the sky. And there we are. Once it's in the water, we try and get away as fast as possible and let the torpedo continue and run true towards the enemy fleet. Our southern fleet isn't going to engage the enemy fleet this turn. We're just going to try and harass them with our aircraft as much as possible. We're using our Southern Fleet as a fleet in being, and what that means is you don't engage the enemy because you have a possibility of losing. Instead, you just leave your fleet nearby or in port, so you just deny the enemy the possibility to gain naval supremacy over the region. But there we go, we've just about managed to get out of anti-aircraft gun range, and our torpedo is heading straight towards one of Tape's cruisers. We're just going to swap to it now, and here it goes. Unfortunately, it hits the main armor belt of the ship, torpedo bulge, so it only does very minor damage. If we'd hit near the back of the ship, we might have destroyed the engines, or maybe if we hit the middle of the ship, we might have done some damage, caused some flooding and destroyed the boiler, but unfortunately, very little damage is caused. Anyway, our northern carrier, the Kruolan Watson, took a fierce pounding last turn, but thankfully she managed to survive. Our damage control team's clearly doing their utmost to keep her floating. Look how low in the water she's sitting though. Thankfully, her boiler and her engines and all her main systems are intact. So we patch her up with a supply unit and we move in to attack Osiris Fortress. We're going to bomb it first and then we'll invade it next turn with our main fleet. The problem we face is that Tape's fleet is sitting in port, which means even critically damaging one of his ships won't be enough. He can just salvage them, repair them, or even just use them as a coastal gun battery. We need to completely destroy one of his ships in order to remove it from the up-and-coming naval battle. This is much the same as the problem the Japanese faced at Pearl Harbor. It was only ships such as the USS Arizona that got completely destroyed that the US weren't able to pretty much immediately start salvaging or repair in the months that followed. So we need to get a direct hit on the magazine of one of these ships in order to destroy them and try and even the odds a little bit for the up-and-coming naval battle next turn. So what we're doing is we're going after the USS Mayfair, which is an obsolete cruiser, but it's got the most open deck space, so we have the largest chance of being able to put it straight to the bottom of the harbour. There we go, dropping our 1,600 pound armour-piercing bomb, and for some reason our wingmen don't drop their bombs, but I'm not going to wait around to hang about and see why. We're going to get the hell out of dodge because there is a lot of anti-aircraft fire heading towards us, and there we go, the bomb is heading straight towards the Mayfair, crossing our fingers, seeing if it can get a critical hit. Unfortunately, it hits, but it doesn't do any critical damage. It only superficially damages the superstructure and blows off some anti-aircraft guns. Not enough to remove it from the up-and-coming battle. So, we're not going to let this discourage us. We're going to come around and we're going to go in for a second attack run after we've got out of range of the anti-aircraft guns, and we send the aircraft that we're currently flying back to the carrier to rearm. Of course, we can't use that aircraft again this turn, so we're going to have to go back with the two aircraft that still have their bombs. So here we go, going for a second run on the USS Mayfair. This is a very, very tough ship. She may be old, but she's certainly still got it where it counts. Here we go, going straight over and going for another dive bombing strike. We don't dare dive too low. See, the only way to guarantee a hit is to dive to about 1.5 kilometers. We don't dare go that close because the amount of anti-aircraft guns that are in this port and on these ships, it would just be absolute suicide to get any closer than the 2.5 kilometers that we close to here. There we go, bombs dropped, and again, it's pretty much down to chance as to whether this actually completely destroys the ship. As you saw in our testing video, you can destroy a ship completely with one of these bombs, but we face the same problem that Tape faced while bombing the Kevin O'Gara during his turn. We actually hit one of the turrets of the ship, which is one of the most heavily armoured parts of the ship, so we don't get through the deck and we don't manage it to explode inside the magazine of the ship where all the ammunition is stored, where obviously those don't react particularly well to getting blown up. So here we go, we've got one last chance to blow up this ship, so we're going to take it. This wingman, for some reason, he was flying off above 5 kilometers. I don't know what he was doing. The AI guard mode plays up when you've got this many craft flying about. So here we go, final chance to sink the USS Mayfair. We're going to try and make it count. We're going in, we're going to try and hold our nerve until we're close enough to dive, and then make sure our bomb is accurate enough to actually hit the deck. Level bombing doesn't really work with these fast aircraft, but there we go, the final bomb is away. This is our final chance to sink the USS Mayfair and try and even the odds just a little bit for the naval battle that is up and coming, that will probably determine the entire fate of our northern push into Kerthenia. Unfortunately, it does hit and it does destroy the boiler and the engines of the USS Mayfair, but it doesn't detonate the magazine, and unfortunately she's still afloat. Aircraft carriers not really showing themselves to be the war-winning weapons that we hoped they would be. because our bombs seem to fail to do a huge amount of damage to heavy cruisers and battleships. Up against light cruisers, destroyers and anything smaller, these armor-piercing bombs are extremely deadly, but it seems that the war for the Acea is being decided by heavy cruisers and battleships at the moment, not by aircraft carriers. Oh well, doesn't matter. We're going to head back to our carrier. Kerthenian anti-aircraft guns miss us by miles. Kerthenian gunners can't aim for shit, so don't have to worry too much. Anyway, we're not going to give up on bombing Tape's fleet. We still have our BH-17 Albatross lying about, so instead of dropping all our bombs on Osiris Bay, like we did last turn and like I was planning on doing this turn, we're going to drop 1,000 pounds of bombs on Osiris Bay, where Tape has 4 of his light tanks, and then we've saved 4,000 pound bombs to go drop on his fleet. These are only high explosive bombs though. These big level bombers can't carry armor piercing bombs. So we are only going to be able to smash the superstructure of the ship, but hopefully 4 of these high explosive bombs should be able to do enough damage to remove one from play. But first things first, we've got a date with Tape's tanks here at Osiris Bay. We've bombed this city to absolute hell. Tape's going to have to start repairing it sometime soon, otherwise he's going to lose a supply launch just because we dropped so many bombs on this city. He's got 4 of his light tanks. He managed to take back this city pretty easily last turn, and I've decided I'm going to stop sending troops into the meat grinder that is urban combat, at least for now. We're sort of consolidating our position in the north right now. We're making it far too easy for Tape to counterattack, and he was very close to retaking Valley's Guard before. But we're not going to waste too many of our bombs, dropping 2 500 pound bombs. Tape has got a single 3-inch flat gun. It's not actually on guard mode though. I do see this in a second, and then I immediately activate it when I realise he's forgotten to put it on guard mode. There you go. But it's actually in amongst the actual buildings, much like all his 20mm emplacements as well, so it can only shoot at us for a very limited time once we're directly overhead. In the moment it's shooting at the bomb that's falling towards it, and as soon as we're overhead there are a bunch of buildings blocking its shot at us. 2 of our bombs find their mark and take out one of Tape's tanks. He's clustered them all pretty close together, so if we actually wanted to use the rest of our bombs, we probably could take out all of them, but I'm going to leave them for our attack aircraft later on in the turn, and we're going to save these 1,000 pounders for Tape's fleet. So there we go, we've done a pretty decent amount of damage, and we're going to go head off to Osiris Fortress. So here we go. We need to be really careful here. This is a massive target. The main guns of these ships and the big 3-inch anti-aircraft guns they have weren't particularly effective against our attackers because they were so maneuverable and so fast. This bomber doesn't have any of those advantages. It's a big, slow target. We need to get in, drop all our bombs on the USS Fortitude here, which is lined up perfectly for us and right on the edge of the bay, and then we need to get the hell out of Dodge before their anti-aircraft guns can train themselves on us. We cannot risk getting this thing blown out of the sky. It is too damn expensive and too damn useful. There we go, all our bombs are away, and we're not going to fly over the rest of the bay. We're going to turn right around and head right back to base. We do not want to get shot out of the sky. This cannot dodge flak in the way that all of our aircraft have been up to now. And there we go, they're starting to open up. Thank God we're right at the top of our altitude ceiling, and we just about managed to get away before those anti-aircraft guns decided to shoot at us instead of the bombs. I do swap to the USS Fortitude because I want to see the fall of these bombs and see exactly where they hit and how much damage they do. Here they go. First bomb, that's a little bit short. Second bomb, a little bit short. Third bomb hits on the front, gets a glancing blow, but the 4th bomb misses by a mile. We don't do any significant damage even to the superstructure, and we've completely failed in our mission to destroy any of Tape's ships here at Osiris. Not looking too great, really, for that naval battle, but oh well. Anyway, Tape has also put some troops in the south. You see, even though we've been smashing Tape on a tactical level in the north over and over again, he really has started consolidating his grand strategy, and he's starting to put a lot of pressure on us in the Acea and down in the southern island chain. So we have a single Vulture left over from last turn, oh actually from the turn before that I believe. Tape hasn't got around to destroying it yet. We've changed how they look a little bit because quite a few of you have pointed out that the Vulture doesn't look too much like the IL-2, so we've shortened the cockpit, we've thickened the wings, we've beefed them up with struts and armor plating inside the wings, so this thing can take a hell of a beating even though it is much heavier and far less maneuverable than it used to be. And here we go, we're going to go try and smash some of Tape's tanks in the south. He's got a light tank and a medium tank. The only thing that really threatens us here is the medium tank, because Tape can't really attack Azamec with a lone light tank. That would be complete suicide. Tape has also got 3 interceptors here though, and with how slow and clumsy this aircraft is, they are going to pose a very big threat to us. So we need to get in, dive bomb that medium tank and get out before those interceptors know what hit them. So here we go, just holding our nerve until we're right above, because we need to get some nice accurate hits. Throughout this turn, I actually improved my dive bombing quite a great deal. I realised that the bombs actually tend to fall short more than anything. So here I'm actually trying to get the medium tank right in the middle of the marker. But by the end of the turn, I realised you need to sort of aim a little bit further, because the bombs tend to fall just a little bit short of where you're aiming. But there we go, we drop our bombs, and then we try and turn around and get out of here before those 20mm anti-aircraft guns can open up. Thank God Tape didn't have any 3-inch or 40mm anti-aircraft guns, because they would have almost certainly blown us out of the sky. But these 20mm have only got a short range, and although we hit the tank, it's only a glancing hit. So we blow off some armor panels and we knock it about a bit, scare the crew, but we don't actually do any significant damage to it. So there it is, still very much intact, and actually firing its main gun at us. So we're going to get out of here before those interceptors turn around, and before that tank can actually blow us out of the sky with its tank cannon. Unfortunately, these interceptors are really fast, and after filling the wings of this thing with struts and making the wings bigger and beefier, this is a really slow ground attack aircraft at this point by World War II standards, even though, as I said, it can take much bigger beating. So these things are closing whether we like it or not. We've got one thing that's going to stop them shredding us with their Hispano 20mm cannons, which is our 50 cal tail gun. So we're going to try and get it trained on. Unfortunately, it's got a very small range of about just over a kilometre, so we've got to wait, and our gunner's got to keep his nerve right until the last second, until they're right on our tail, and then we can open fire. And there we go, they're starting to do manoeuvres, trying to pull it away, and we break up their formation. Wonderful, we're trying to just sort of keep them off our backs and trying to run away to Azamec. Surprisingly, we managed to take one out almost immediately. This 50 cal tail gun is actually very effective. We probably need to nerf it a little bit because of how accurate and just how devastating this actually is to closing aircraft. But they're still on our tail. We've still got 2 to deal with, put some even more shots into another one and take out a second interceptor. Unfortunately, then we need to reload, and this has got a very long reload, and now we're pretty much at the mercy of this interceptor. However, Tape seems to have made a very crucial error. He's instructed his interceptors to have, I think, a pretty high minimum altitude of about 1 kilometer, and we're basically dodging and weaving throughout the hills, and we're really close to the ground here. So Tape's interceptor doesn't dare actually close down to our altitude to finish us off. It's staying up at about 1 kilometer, which means it can't really get shots onto us. So even though we're sitting here, like basically presenting a perfect target to him, a complete sitting duck, slow lumbering aircraft running about at just about 100 meters above the ground, the interceptor can't really take advantage of it. They do take some shots at us, but they pull up before they can close to a close enough range that they can easily finish us off. I'm not gonna waste this opportunity to take advantage of this weakness. Tape seems to have told his pilots to stay as high as possible, and there we go. Our 50 cal has actually managed to reload itself at this point. I turned the guard mode off because I didn't want it controlling my main guns or anything, or messing with the aircraft. But now the 50 cal turret's reloaded. The interceptor is putting itself in a pretty good position. It's still firing at us, but we're just waiting until it puts itself right on our tail. We don't want to waste the ammo we have left. Come on, there we go, and get the gunner aiming at it. Okay, activate guard mode now. Okay, there we go, open fire, take it out, and yes, it's taken down. Unfortunately, we don't look where we're flying, and we fly straight into a hill. Yeah, that was very dumb. We do take out all 3 interceptors, but unfortunately we lose the Vulture. And there we go. Tape's medium tank is still intact and still looking at Azamec with hungry eyes. I don't really want to use any more of my air launchers this turn. We want to be focusing them in the north, where at the moment our situation is looking pretty precarious. However, we still have 2 TE2 ancient World War I biplanes sitting here at Azamec, basically doing nothing. These are so unbelievably slow. They're completely useless in an offensive role, or even an offensive role. They can't take out any modern aircraft. Even if they did manage to get onto one's tail, their 30 cals are really puny. So I decide, you know what? we're going to try and make these things useful. We're going to try and make them count, and we're going to use both of them in an attack on this southern island. See if we can use them in some kind of kamikaze ground strike attack run on this forward operating base. I don't know what I was really thinking, but I just thought we have them, we might as well use them. If we leave them at Azamec, Tape's just going to fly in a modern fighter and just savage them anyway, so they might as well go down fighting. Our first target is this radar station here. We're just trying to do as much damage as we can because Tape's going to have to use his precious supply unit in order to repair this, and this means his fighters can't scramble as early, so his interceptors, if he posts more here, won't be so much of a problem. We do manage to take out the radar station, but we close very close, rip off a chunk of wing, and oh dear, we've exposed ourselves to the 20 mils, and oh god, yeah, we get blown out of the sky almost immediately. As you see, we're far too slow to get out of range fast enough, and down goes our first TE2. We have done some damage though, so the bravery of these pilots is almost certainly not in vain. We still have another TE2 though, so this time we're going to make another attack run, but on the C2 Centaur. So we're going in very low. I was going to say very fast, but still not particularly fast, using the terrain to hide us from these 20 mils, and then we're going to pop up over the hill and try and get some shots in and the gaps in the armour that our 500-pound bombs created. I didn't have particularly high hopes for this, but you know, it's worth a try. If we could take out this medium tank with this biplane, it would be amazing. We could focus all our air launches in the north and we wouldn't have anything to worry about. So here we go, merging over the crest of the hill, just about, no, we don't even get a chance to open fire, and we're blown out of the sky into a billion pieces. Ah, oh well, they shall be forever remembered as heroes. They tried. So we're going to have to launch another bombing run on that tank, but it's at this point that I realised that our southern carrier being here has actually extended the range of our air force enough that we can go after another vitally important asset of the Kerthenians, and that's their World War I bomber. Now it's obsolete, but this thing has been a pain in my ass for too goddamn long. It's dropped bomb after bomb after bomb after bomb on our ships and our tanks, and it's time to end it once and for all. And the carrier can also be used as a forward operating base for our land-based aircraft, as well as having its own naval-based aircraft. Of course, the Fleet Air Arm inevitably wetting themselves laughing at this this big, slow, clumsy Vulture ground attack aircraft managing to lift itself off from a carrier. We only just about managed to get into the air, but once we're in the air, we're pretty much home free, and Tape's got pretty much nothing defending this Eagle. It's just here with a couple of 20mm AA emplacements defending it, and as soon as we fly over, they immediately look up and see this big lumbering attack aircraft and think, oh, that's lunch, and they head straight up after us, because this is a World War I bomber, but it's very, very fast. It's got 3 engines, although its armament is only consisting of 30 cal turrets, so it's pretty much just easy prey. So we lure it out a little bit away from those 20 mils, not that they really pose much of a threat, they've only got a very short 2.5 kilometer range, and here we go. We've got 50 cals, this should be a piece of cake. So we try and maintain an altitude advantage over it, we want to dive down on it and pick it off like a piece of cake. However, the Eagle doesn't seem to quite agree with this idea and doesn't really cooperate. So while we dive down towards it, it pulls up straight towards us and we fire it, and then I realise, oh god, it's coming towards us. Abort, abort, and oh, it rips off a chunk of our wing. Thankfully, we managed to pull away just in time, so it only takes off a tiny chunk of our left wing and also takes off one of our 500-pound bombs and one of our landing legs. The Eagle is slightly less well off. We've taken off an entire wing and it's gone into a flat spin. So we hang around a little bit and sure enough, it flops into the ocean. That is the end of that Eagle one. It had a very fearsome reputation. It's wiped out a hell of a lot of our tanks and our ships, but finally it has been put down. But unfortunately, now we only have one 500-pound bomb to drop on this tank, so we really do need to make this count. This is the final attack we're going to be launching against this thing, so we really do want to be making this inflict as much damage as possible. We really do have to use the rest of our air launches in the north, otherwise we're going to have a very, very precarious situation on our hands. So here we go, just again holding our nerve till we're right overhead. I really, really want to be as accurate as possible with this bomb. At this point I have learned that you do need to aim a little bit further than where the reticule reticule actually tells you, because the bombs undershoot. So here we go, diving towards this tank for the umpteenth time. Okay, surely this has got to be it. We pull up a little bit. Okay, it's just getting the bottom of the reticule where we want to drop the bomb, and there we go, one 500-pound bomb onto the Centaur. Come on, this has got to do it. Here it goes. It's going in. Anti-aircraft guns start opening up, and direct hits. Yes. Unfortunately, this thing seems to have been designed to withstand direct hits from 500-pound bombs, because once we get out of anti-aircraft range, there we go, just dodging some 20mm flak doesn't really pose too much of a threat to us. We swap back, see how much damage we've done, and sure enough, it's flipped over, but it's still in one piece. God damn it, this thing is practically indestructible. What do they make these tanks out of? Oh well, we failed in our bombing mission for the umpteenth time this turn, but oh well, we're going to have to let it go. Anyway, at this point I'm rather enraged. We've done so many bombing runs this turn. We haven't done any major troop movements. We're just consolidating our position in the north and the south. But almost every bombing run we've done has failed. Well, you know what? I'm going to exact my revenge on not just the tanks of Kerthenia, but the people of Kerthenia themselves. Yes, we're going to do another attack run on Osiris Bay. I have had it up to here with my bombing runs failing. So you know what? We're going to go after some targets which we know we can damage, we know we can destroy. We've got 3 of these light tanks still remaining in Osiris Bay, and of course it's still full of Kerthenian citizens being used as meat shields. Well, we're not going to let that dissuade us from dropping 500-pound bombs on them. Here we go. We're driving straight in to try and wipe out these imperialist scum. I'm just sick of it. I want revenge. Here we go. So there are some anti-aircraft guns sitting in this city, but as I said, since they're in amongst the buildings, they can't really get any shots at us until we're directly overhead, and by the time we're directly overhead, it's too late and we've dropped our bombs. Wham! Eat that, imperialist scum. There we go. Too easy, like fish in a barrel. And that's just the first vulture. Second vulture's coming around, and here we go. Second bombing run. We've got 2 tanks left. Can we take them both out in a single dive bomb? Well, let's find out. Here we are, holding our nerve again. As you see, we are getting really rather proficient at dive bombing at this stage. This is actually an excellent dive bombing aircraft, as well as a ground attack aircraft, as we found out in previous turns. Here we go. We've got 2 tanks and we've got 2 bombs. They're both pretty close to each other though, so we don't have to worry too much. Here we go, dropping 1 bomb on the first tank, and then second bomb on that tank, and there we go. Pull out before the anti-aircraft guns take us down, and direct hits! Pieces of that light tank flying away right out of the city. Chunks of Kerthenia. Oh, all over the place. Wonderful, absolutely wonderful. Even though we didn't have a particularly successful turn, that's a pretty explosive finish to it. And there we are, just consolidating our position here at Valley's Guard. We're not going to steam into Osiris Bay, because Tape would almost certainly just perform another counterattack and take it out of our hands again. And even if we could push on to Osiris Fortress, we're still waiting for the results of that epic naval battle which is going to occur next turn. So we're just going to leave our tanks here. We've got 3 light tanks, 2 self-propelled guns, and a bunch of anti-aircraft guns. And now Tape doesn't have his World War 1 bomber anymore. He should, hopefully, have a bit of trouble trying to bomb all of those tanks. We're also putting up some defensive placements here. Azamec, nowhere near as much as at Valley's Guard, but, well, we haven't got to defend against quite as much. Tape's only got his medium tank and his light tank, and they're both quite badly damaged after our bombing runs, despite us not being able to finish them off. And here we are in the south. Our southern fleet has received a King-class battleship. Yes, now we have fire control radar. This, the KUS Voldov, should now become the ruler of the oceans. I'm pretty sure Tape won't even dare to attack this with his fleet of heavy cruisers. They just cannot stand up to the guns on this thing. And after Acea gave us a patch, which now means we can fire armor-piercing rounds from those 15-inch guns, I don't think Tape's fleet would even stand a chance against us. So there we are, our fleet being in the south, rather secure for yet another turn. And our position in the north, well, looking a little precarious. It's fine on the land front, but that naval battle is going to be very decisive one way or another. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. I'm sorry this episode came out a little late. I've been extremely busy. I do hope you enjoyed, and I will see you all next time.